Praise the Lord, my beautiful, blessed souls. I'm back with another word. We are in Numbers chapter 28. I'm going to read it and we're going to get into it. It's a good word, but it's a lot to it as well. It has a lot of meaning. But the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Command the people of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food, for my food offerings, my pleasing aroma, you shall be careful to offer to me at its appointed time. And you shall say to them, this is the food offering that you shall offer to the Lord: 2 male lambs, a year old, without blemish, day by day as a regular offering. And then the one lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the other lamb you shall often offer at twilight. Also a tenth of the ephah of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with a quarter of hin of beaten oil. It is a regular burnt offering which was ordained at Mount Sinai for a pleasing aroma. A food offering to the Lord, its drink offering shall be a quarter of a hin for each lamb. In the holy place you shall pour out drink offering of strong drink to the Lord. The other lamb you shall offer at twilight, like the grain offering of the morning, and like its drink offering you shall offer it as a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Now on the Sabbath day, 2 male lambs, a year old, without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with oil, and its drink offering. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. And the beginnings of your months you shall offer a burnt offering to the Lord: 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs, a year old, without blemish. Also 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with oil, for each bull, and 2/10 of fine flour for a grain offering, mixed with oil, for the 1 ram, and a 1/10 of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for every lamb. And for a burnt offering with a pleasing aroma, a food offering to the Lord, their drink offering shall be half a hin wine for a bull, and a third a hin for a ram, and a quarter of a hin for a lamb. And this is the burnt offering of each month throughout the month of the year. Also 1 male goat for a sin offering to the Lord, it shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. Now on the 14th day of the first month is the Lord's Passover, and on the 15th day of the month is a feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten, and on the first day there shall be a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work, but offer a food offering, a burnt offering to the Lord: 2 bulls from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs, a year old, and see that they are without blemish. Also their grain offering of fine flour mixed with oil. 3/10 of an ephah shall you offer for a bull, and 2/10 for a ram. A 1/10 shall you offer for each of the 7 lambs. Also 1 male goat for a sin offering to make atonement for you. You shall offer these besides the burnt offering of the morning, which is for the regular burnt offering. In the same way you shall offer daily for 7 days the food of a food offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord. It shall be offered besides the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. And on the 7th day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work. And on the day of the first fruits, when you offer a grain offering of a new grain to the Lord at your feast of weeks, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work, but offer a burnt offering with a pleasing aroma to the Lord: 2 bulls from the herd of 1 ram, 7 male lambs, a year old. Also their grain offering of the fine flour mixed with oil. 3/10 of an ephah for each bull, 2/10 for 1 ram, and a 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Now with 1 male goat to make atonement for you. Besides the regular burnt offering and its grain offering, you shall offer them and their drink offering, and see that they are without blemish. So this we already knew. We had already done a little bit about this. We did this in Leviticus. Now Numbers chapter 28. Now that the people were numbered, orders given for the dividing of the land, and a general of the forces nominated and commissioned One would have expected that the next chapter should begin the history of the campaign, or at least should give us an account of the ordinances of war, but no, it contains ordinances of worship, and provides that now, as they were on the point of entering Canaan, that they should be sure to take their religion along with them and not forget this in the persecution of their wars. So the laws are here repeated and summed up concerning the sacrifices that were to be offered: 1 daily, 2 weekly, and 3 monthly, and then the yearly one at the Passover, and then at Pentecost, and at the next chapter is concerning the annual solemnities of the 7th month. So now we're going to look at this, because God is, before they're getting into their stuff, he's, letting them know this is what we're going to be doing. And he's setting them up so that they can, be already aware of what it is he expects. He's already, calling into order everything to make sure that everything is handled. And we're going to look into it and we're going to talk about it. But yeah, this is being on the rhythm flow of God and not on man. So we're going to look at this and get into it, because, folks haven't been practicing any of these things, like, really and truthfully, in a long time, I must say, honestly. And it's sad, but we're more, and this is what it means by being worldly or of the world, because we're not practicing the things that we should be practicing. All of the things that we're practicing is the worldly things, and the world, we already know, when you are friends with the world, you're an enemy of God, because the world itself is kingdoms and systems is set up for Satan. So because we already know this, this is an issue already. So Numbers chapter 28, it gives Moses a detailed instruction from God about the regular sacrifices Israel must bring, and these offerings from a worship schedule. He's letting them see the schedule that repeats daily. So there's 2, one in the morning, one at night, daily, every day. Then there's weekly, monthly, and then during their major festivals. So now the daily offerings was 1 lamb in the morning, 1 lamb in the evening, a grain offering mixed with oil, and a drink offering of wine. This purpose is continual daily worship and fellowship with God. Sabbath offerings, every Sabbath, meaning Saturday, 2 lambs, extra grain, and drink offerings, in addition to the daily sacrifice. So there's the regular daily sacrifice, that's the morning and evening, and then there's Sabbath, this is how they're going to do it. So they're going to add that to it. Then the monthly offerings will be the new moons on the first day of each month. It'll be 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 male goat as a sin offering. Then the grain and drink offerings for each animal. The purpose is renewing dedication at the start of each month. So that's daily, then weekly, and then this is showing the monthly, and then they're going to get into the yearly. So then the Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread. Passover day is the 14th of the first month, which we already figured it was April. Feast of Unleavened Bread, 7 days starting the next day. Each of the 7 days include 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 goat, sin offering, and a grain and drink offerings. Purpose is remembering the Exodus and living with purity. Now remember, this is inclusive of the daily stuff, because remember, they're going to do their daily stuff and then whatever else they need to do. So this is the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, at the first harvest, 50 days after Passover. They're going to do 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 male goat, the grain and drink offerings. Purpose is giving thanks to God for provision and offering the first fruits. Remember, the first fruits are important. So now we're going to go and we're going to look at so God tells Moses to instruct Israel on the offerings as he requires, meaning this is about faithful consistency, not random worship. So when we look at God, even his worship is something that he looks at, meaning worship is more than just raising your hands and doing these rituals. It's about relationship, communing. It's about actually obeying what God tells you to do. And God sets the rhythm for Israel's spiritual life. This is a relationship. So he's showing them how to be in covenant, in relationship with him. This is just like being in a relationship with someone you're, whether it's your child or your spouse, and y'all have this set appointed times to do certain things, to meet, to go out. This is what this is about. So because he's letting them know what it is he expects and wants from them for their relationship to work smoothly, meaning they do their part, he does his part. So the daily offerings are 2 lambs, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, each with a grain and drink offerings, meaning symbolizes continual fellowship. Morning and evening worship frame each day around God. This offering never stops, showing God's presence never stops. This showed me a lot too, because I do have a prayer schedule, a prayer life, which is my communion with God, but I didn't think about it this way. But see, now that I see the pattern, my habit and my thoughts go to, now I need to get better habits and implement some of this into my own, because this is relationship, spending time with God, having a relationship with him. And it's not about asking and begging for things all the time. It's about really having, no one wants to be in a relationship with someone where they only want to talk to you when they want something. You want them to commune with you, whether you're giving them something, doing something for them or not. And this is what this is about. Then there's the morning and evening worship frame each day around God. This offering never stops, showing God's presence. And it's also a way to start and end your day, because when you think about it, what goes on throughout the day, morning prayer, evening prayer, or night prayer, however people do it, that's what that will be about. So instead of us, I guess, doing the rituals of the ritualistic our prayer life, this could be our prayer life, having a relationship with God, praying in the morning. For those who do or don't, they know the prayer watches. I spoke about the prayer watches. It's 8 of them, and it's helping to gauge what's going on, because prayer is a form of warfare, because it helps to fight against things being planned for your life. Because remember, the enemy is always trying to attack your life, and they don't sleep or slumber. So in order for you to kind of, one, you want to commune with God, to know what it is you're doing throughout your life. This is the conversations like jobs, what he wants you to do, your purpose, your assignment, whatever, your regular everyday stuff with jobs and kids and husbands and all. So you want to be in communion with God, meaning having conversations about these things, and this would be the time to do this. So then you have the Sabbath offerings. On the Sabbath, 2 extra lambs and grain offerings were added, meaning Sabbath is a day of increased devotion, not less. It is rest, but yet it is also worship, are tied together. Monthly are the new moon offerings, and at the start of each month he wants 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 male goat. But remember, they're still going to do their other stuff. And then, meaning each new month was spiritually reset. Israel begins with worship and renewal. Everything is about the first with God. So it's the first part of the morning, it's the end of the day. It will be your first fruits, meaning money, time, everything. So it's not just about tithe. No, it's the first of everything. That's the first of your month, the first of the week. This is how this is. And so Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread. The Passover is the 14th day of the first month. We calculated that. That was before, when I discussed the year thing. And that was the New Year one. And the New Year really starts in April. So that Passover is the 14th day of the first month. Then you have the unleavened bread, which is the next 7 days. So each of the 7 days is required, because that's the new year. It's in April. Will be 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 goat, which will be the sin offering. So the meaning of Passover equals remembering salvation, because it is a gift. It is not something he had to do for us. Okay, Christ came and died. He allowed that. He sent him. But it is a gift. It's the greatest gift we can have ever in the world. And we're not talking about Christmas. Sorry. I'm going to cancel that out. We already know why. It's not biblical. Unleavened bread, removing impurity. So that's what that is about, because God is always cleansing us. And that is a process of salvation, sanctification. And then it's the offerings reflect gratitude and holiness. So this is what this is about as all. Salvation, which is purity. That's going to come after. And then it's offerings of reflecting the gratitude and holiness. Why? For the sanctification and for the being grateful, which is what a lot of folks don't do. And that's what worship is all about. Being grateful, being thankful for what he's giving you, what he's doing. And that means the salvation he's given you through his son, sending him to die for us, and then impurities, removing everything that's not, so we could come closer. And this is a gratitude, reflecting our gratitude. That's in holiness. So the Feast of Weeks is Pentecost. Is at the first grain harvest, which will be 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, and 1 male goat. The meaning of this celebrates God provision. It teaches us to give God your first, not your leftovers. Meaning symbol of trust in future harvest. But that's also because we're supposed to put him first. This is where the idolatry, is putting everything else before him. That's out of alignment, and it distorts and disrupts. Give me 1 second. What he wants from us, because he is the source. So we're supposed to acknowledge him first. And I think this is just like with our relationships with kids and with, it goes back to the same thing, being the bride of Christ and being his children, putting him first. Why? Because he puts us first. And that's what that's supposed to be. Our gratitude should be being thankful towards what he's doing instead of being ungrateful. So that's by being obedient, by worshiping, by doing as he says, as he asks us to do. But then the relationship is together. Why? Because we're going to worship, give back, and sacrifice and do what he asks us to do, because that's what relationships is all about. You're going to give and take on each end. So when we're looking at this makes a lot of sense. Because as our Father, he's a provider. As our as the body of church, or body of Christ, I would say, we're being the bride, he's our provider. So it's still the same concept of, Master, Lord, Father, husband, same thing. Provider, protector, love us and keep us of our souls, So offering charts, we're going to look at these offerings. The daily is the 2 lambs, the grain, and the drink. That's continual fellowship. It was what was offered. But the reason is, the purpose is continual fellowship, meaning to continue to have a relationship with him on a daily, day-to-day basis. The Sabbath is just on the weekends, which is, the end of the week, that one day when you don't do anything, you rest. And it's the 2 lambs, the extra grain and drink, and the holy rest, which is extra devotion. Now, the new moon was the 2 bulls, the 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 goat. That was monthly renewal. And then, remember, it's always the first. So the first of the week, first of the day, first of the week. Well, this is the first. Passover week, 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 goat daily, remembering salvation and purity. In the Feast of Weeks is 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs, 1 goat is the first fruits of gratitude. Now, this is devotional reflection, consistency over intensity. This is what he wants, a consistent pattern of when we get together, when we have a relationship. That's just like having a household and you have dinner at 7. You see what I'm saying? It's a pattern. It's a consistent pattern of having that interaction with each other. So that's what that's about. And when we look at it, it makes a lot of sense. Devotional reflection, consistency over intensity. So Numbers 28 teaches us that God is not asking for dramatic. It's just one-time sacrifices. He's asking for daily relationships. So that's daily offerings teach us to start and end our day with God. Sabbath offerings teach us that rest is worship. And monthly offerings teach us that begin every new start with God. Festival offerings teach, remember what God has done. And first fruits offerings teaches us to trust God with your future. So it makes a lot of sense. It's, past, present, and future. You remember in the past, you're having, day-to-day reaction, and then you're preparing, with him for the future. So, this is the rhythm, the daily, weekly, monthly, or seasonal. It is God's inviting us to strengthen our life in him and having, an actual relationship. Now, historical and cultural background, sacrifices were common in the ancient world, but Israel was structured and relational. This is why, idolatry of worshiping the other gods, because they sacrificed, but it was to their gods. So that's communing with them, having a relationship with them. This is why it was considered to be adulterous and all of that, and idolatry worship. Other cultures sacrifice for fear. Israel sacrificed for fellowship and thankfulness. See, there's a difference. Offerings was not about feeding God as a pagans believed. They were about forming identity, keeping the nation connected to God. These rituals shape Israel's calendar, community, and values. Remember, that's their way. When you feed God, that's your way of communing, having food, having fellowship with him, having conversations, talking to him, interacting with him in an intimate way. Study guide is teaching the outline. Introduction guide establishes rhythms of worship. Worship is structured, not fractured. Daily commitment is continual offering equal continual, good morning, presence. That's what we want, to have continual presence and guidance with him. Weekly devotion, Sabbath increases worship rather than pauses it. Monthly renewal, the new moon reminds Israel to start fresh. Annual remembrance, Passover and unleavened bread anchor Israel's identity. God rescues Israel and they remembers. So this is what this is about. Seasonal gratitude, Feast of Weeks connects worship to work. First fruits offering, this is trust. Application today, build spiritual habits. Start with God, stay with God, end with God. And this is what this is about, because when we look at it, it's showing us the pattern. Remember, the thoughts, habits form what? Patterns and cycles. So this is what he wants them to continue to doing. It's a worship that is structured, is not fractured, right? The daily commitment is continual offering, continual presence, having continual relationship with him. When you are in a relationship with someone, this is how you keep the fire burning, you keep the relationship going. You have to do the work. If you don't, then it will have issues. There will be breakdowns. There will be sure. You see how they went and was sacrificing and doing other things with other guys, idle time. They weren't taking what they were doing seriously. And this is what this is about. God is reminding them to get back on track, get back into alignment with him, to come back into fellowship and relationship with him, because they had just breached it. So this is a way of bringing them back into that. So then the monthly renewal is the new moon. It reminds Israel to start afresh, meaning you go through trials and tribulations throughout your weeks, your days, your weeks, your months. It's the same, keeping it fresh, keeping the relationship going, not letting it get stale, not letting it get boring, continuing to have that bond. And that's what this is about, because God doesn't really need, anything from us, but he wants to have a relationship. So he structured it so we would have a relationship with him. And that's the way that he did it. And I wonder if they would have did this on their own. It's like, if they could just get what they want and not have a relationship. You see what I'm saying? Like, even when it comes to your children, it's like, and they just want to come and get stuff, and after a while they get a certain age and they don't want to be bothered with you unless they want something. That's not relationship, that's usership. You see what I'm saying? And God doesn't want the usership, he wants the relationship. It's not about, it's about having a relationship in bonding with each other. So the monthly renewal, the new moon reminds Israel to start fresh, meaning there's stuff going on, you can start over. That's what that does. And keeps them going. It keeps the rhythm and the flow going. Annual remembrance is the Passover and unleavened bread. This anchors Israel's identity, meaning because God rescues them, and he has several times, and Israel remembers. And it's gratitude, because at the end of the day, that's what the next one says. Seasonal gratitude. Feast of Weeks connects to worship, to work. First fruits offering equals trust. Trusting in him, having gratitude, being thankful. And it's one thing when you're dealing with people and they're grateful about what you do for them, and it makes all the difference in the world, and them wanting to actually have a relationship with you instead of it being forced or made. You see what I'm saying? There's a difference when someone wants to commune with you, when you have to make them. It's just different. And then there's application of today, building spiritual habits that start with God, that stay with God, and end with God, meaning having continual relationship. Intimacy. Excuse me. Intimacy is, relationship, intimacy, that bond, that communication, that I can go to God, I can trust him, I won't have doubts, worries, or fears about what's going on in my life. I can speak to them about whatever's going on, whether it's in my job situation, my career, whether it's in my children, my relationships with him. If I don't understand something, if I'm upset about something, this is where that comes in at. And that's where the relationship portion comes in. A lot of people think, we just go to church. No, if you don't have a relationship with Christ at home, how can you have a relationship at church? Because going to church is just going to a building. But if you have a relationship with him at home, you can have a relationship with him anyway. That means he's always with you. That's what I mean by religion versus rituals versus relationship. Now, God wants us to have a relationship with him. So he does give a ritualistic pattern, meaning people call it religion or whatever they want to call it, in order for us to commune with him. Why? Because it sets up a pattern of how we commune, have relationship. So praying and fasting, or this is what he set up for us to have fellowship. It's not about, like I said, a ritual or religious practices. It's about having a relationship with him. And where we sit down and talk and able to break bread with him and talk. You see him talking about preparing the table. You hear him talk about celebrations and feasts. This is what this is about. Celebrating the relationship we have with him. So when we think about having celebrations and birthdays and anniversaries for our kids and ourselves, this is what that means when we're doing it with God. This is him creating this pattern so that this is what we can do to have a relationship with him. So when people talk about, you don't have, this is what this is about. It's not that God wants religious practices. No, religion is just doing something and there's no intimacy behind it. You just go cut the chicken, do this, do that, and then that's it. Intimacy, which is relationship, is when you sit down and you have actual break bread, conversations, talks, actual intimacy, have a relationship where you talk to each other about what is going on. And that is the big difference. And so because that's one of the main things Christ is talking about, get from me because I never knew you. Why? Because if you don't know him intimately, how can you know? You may know of him, but if you don't know him personally, how do you say you know someone? You see what I'm saying? And so that is what he's talking about, because a lot of the stuff they were doing it, but it didn't mean anything because it got to the point where it was rituals and it wasn't about him and having a relationship. They took that part, the heart, the intimacy, the love, the heart and the spirit didn't matter out of it. The motives and intentions was about getting money, getting things, and this is where we got to pay attention, engage our relationship too with him. Are we just coming to ask for things? I mean, are we praying for money? Are we praying for this? Or do we just be like, oh, well, Lord, what is it that you want from me? What do you want from me today? Or, how do you feel today about certain things? And, this is where you take that ritualistic religion out of it. The Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, Sadducees, that's what they was all about. But it wasn't coming from the heart, and that's what that's about. He doesn't want it if it's not from the heart. Because if he wanted it that way, he wouldn't have made Adam and Eve in the garden to walk among them. He wanted relationship, to commune with them. And so sin is what separates us from him. So we have to get the sin. That's what the sanctification is about, getting the sin out so we can commune with him better. Because the less sin you have in your life, the better you're able to commune here, because that separates us from him. So this is a lot of spiritual meaning. Hold on. Let me see. And I guess the remembrance too is always a good thing to be in remembrance, because a lot of times when we go through trials and tribulations, we forget about what he has already done in our lives, what he has already done for us. And because of that, we're angry about what's going on now, but he's already done things, and we should still be grateful, because that's not being entitled. People don't mind doing things for you when you are grateful, when you give an attitude of gratefulness, appreciation. But if you just, demanding, and it's just about, then no one's going to want to do that. You see what I'm saying? And it's like the same with God. He feels the same way. He has feelings and emotions because we have feelings and emotions. We already know that. He said he's a jealous God. We can tell that there's something. He tells us not to worship any other idols or have any other God. Why? Because he's our God. He's our creator. He made us, and he wants us to have a relationship with him. How does it look like your child, your spouse having a relationship with everybody except for you? How does that look, and how does that feel to you? But the only time they want to deal with you is when they want something or need something. No one wants to have a relationship with anybody that's just about what they can get, and it's not about what they want from you, because we're always asking God for things. But do we ever stop to think about what it is that God wants from us? Do we really think about it? Is it really on our mind? Do we really care? And this is where a lot of this goes wrong, because in all relationships, which is what this is, there's supposed to be reciprocity. I don't care if it's the male and the female, if it's a job situation, if it's the parent and the children situation. There's always reciprocity. If you're at your job, you come to work expected to get paid, right? Okay, so that's what you're trading. You're getting paid. Why? You're not just going there and not getting paid. Exactly. So there's reciprocity. But as we can see in this world today, a lot of that is not being taken into heart. No one's taking that seriously. People want, but they're not willing to give. And this is what this is. Anything you want, you have to be able to give it, because I can't require stuff from you that I'm not willing to give. Why? How am I gonna ask you to love me, to do all of these things, and I'm not willing to give those things? God is willing to give us certain things, yes, but he wants certain things from us as well. And everybody has certain things that they want, but you wouldn't know that unless you got to know the person. And I keep saying that this is where the relationship comes in it. Because if you are in a relationship with somebody and you keep telling them this is what you like and this is what you don't like, this is what you want, don't, and they just continue to do the opposite, why are you even with them? Because it's like, if they cared, they wouldn't do that. Exactly. And it's the same. They would do things that would make you want to be around them, make you want to have interaction, and make you want to do what it is that they want. You see what I'm saying? And I believe that even as parents, and I see this a lot with the kids, because it's like they don't care. They just want what they want. And when it comes to parents, they feel like parents aren't human beings. Parents are human beings. We have feelings just like they do. Just as much as they want things from us, we want love and affection from them. And we don't want it to be at a cost all the time, where we have to give and do in order for you to come over. No, come and see about me, call me, check on me. Don't have it be a one way, I have to check on you all the time situation unless you want some. Nobody wants to be bothered with you like that. And that's such a selfish take mentality, an ungrateful, entitled mentality. And we're seeing it all over now, where they talk about the kids and the parents and this. And don't get me wrong, because there's parents in their situations that go on, and I get it. But at the same token, you just need to look at the parents. When it comes to the parents have feelings. They go through things just as well as you do. They're not superhumans. They're human beings just like you. And they have feelings, they have emotions, and how you treat them and how you talk to them, how you interact with them. It bothers them. They may not say it to you all the time, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't bother you. This is where a relationship come in, whether it's the siblings, whether it's the job, whatever it is that is going on. There has to be a mutual level of respect and reciprocity for each other in their feelings. If not, this is not going to work. Whether it's their feelings, it's the respect, whatever it is. And what you may deem as respect or whatever, it may not be the same as me. But whatever it is I'm asking of you and I demand and want of you, that should be the same, because you should give me what I'm asking instead of what you want me to have and expect me to be happy and satisfied with that. Because this is where this comes in. People they don't put forth the effort, their intentions, and motives is not in it. And this is what God is talking about, because he wants this, but he wants the motives and the intentions to be there. Meaning the motives and intentions of wanting to have a relationship with him. But he's showing them the blueprint of how to go about having a good relationship. This is what I want. I don't want you to commit adultery. But if you continue to commit adultery, then we're going to have a problem. And then when it comes to disobedience and correcting, then it's an issue. Why? Because I already told you what I didn't want you to do. But obviously you don't care, you didn't respect it if you're doing that. But then if we say it, do something and correct it, then it's an issue and a problem. How? You're the issue. You're the one got out of line. And then in turn, I did what I needed to do, because guess what? At the end of the day, I'm still, connected, and I still want certain things. I love you, but I still am connected and want certain things as well. And if you're not going to do that, or you're not, and that's in any relationship, no one's just going to continue to put up with your mess. You see what I'm saying? There's going to come a point where something's going to happen, because everybody gets tired eventually of folks just doing what they want to do to them. You see what I'm saying? And the reaction to be different from person to person. You know what I'm saying? Now, God's reaction when it came to different things is different from ours, because his mind is not our mind, and his thoughts is not our thoughts, and his ways is not our ways. But because he knows beginning, middle and end, and he knows all about us, so the way he does things is a little different. Now, in the world we live in, depending on what's going on, folks may get fired from a job or get a write-up if it's something disciplinary. But there's going to be an action and a reaction based off of what you're doing. This is where accountability comes in. If you're doing something wrong and then someone turns around and says that you did it wrong and you know you did it wrong, and instead of just taking accountability, you just act like it never happened, then that's not going to work. This is where a lot of folks come into, issues at, where accountability is not being accepted. Accept your portion and your part that you played in it, because no matter who it is, okay, and what happened, both parties have a part to play. Maybe someone did something and then you didn't like it and you said something, Now, saying something and how you say it is different. So even though, you could have been in the right by saying something, but how you said it could have been offensive. So that could be an issue too. So it's like we got to look at these things and look at them from an overall greater picture. But when we see, what's going on, God is just letting us know, there's always going to be rules and regs and boundaries. It doesn't matter. But see, the world we live in, they don't want rules. They don't want regs. They don't want boundaries. And the laws for the lawless. But it's to keep us and protect us and have a hedge of protection. Because when you get out of alignment, as you can see what happened before, they ended up having a plague on them because of their own actions. See, sometimes we're the weapon formed against ourselves that allow it to prosper against us. Why? Because we're doing things, and the things that we're doing, we're getting out of alignment. And when things happen, we want to play victim. You can't play victim when this is what you sowed. You're going to reap it. So because you was disobedient, you got out of alignment, you did what God told you not to do, you caused the plague. Why? Because they was trying to curse you in the last chapter. And instead of you paying attention to that, them keep trying to curse you. So now the curse was able to land. Why? That what they wanted to do happened because you got out of alignment. They just waited for you to do it to yourself. Why? Because they were still after you. They were still after you. They didn't stop. And so when you're not paying attention, when you're too busy trying to do all these other things, when you're beguiled and wild and bewildered and bewitched, this is what happens, because the distraction comes. It takes you off into, that's just like being in the, on the farm, and, the sheep and the goats and the this one and the that one, and they're separated in their own little, and then you wander off over here into some place you ain't got no business being, and then something happens, you get hurt, you get bit, and then you're angry and you're upset. No, you can't be. This goes for when you're making deals, or you're picking spouses, the guy ain't in, or he told you not to, or whatever, and we're doing what we want to do because this is what we want to do. This is what we want, this is what we like, and then these things happen. Same thing with your children, and they do certain things, same situations. You don't like it, they do it, and then they have to live with the consequences and the reactions of their actions. And they can't be mad at nobody but themselves. It just is what it is. But then the parent gets blamed for everything, and it's like, for what? How you blame the parents for everything that the children are doing? Because at some point in time, when folks get to an adult stage, and you can't tell them what to do. You're not over them and over what they're doing. Now, can things you said and did and in childhood affect? Yes. And they may or may not know? Yes. If there's certain things that yes, they can affect. But we're not just going to blame everything on the parent, because this is what happens all the time. Folks like to blame everything on the parent, especially when it comes to the mothers. I see this happening all the time. So that's not what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking accountability of everybody's part that they played in everything. And God is showing us the blueprint of what He wants for us in these situations. And if you veer off from it, like we see people veer off from it and do what they want to do, and because that happens, things happen, and then they get upset. Oh, well, this didn't work out the way I thought. Or and it's like, well, you didn't follow the guidelines and the rules anyway. So because you didn't follow the guidelines and the rules, what made you think it was going to work, or God was going to allow it to work? Because He'll let you have what you want, because we have free will, So if that's what you want, you went and you got it, and you went and you did it. But don't be mad if it don't work out or play out the way you wanted it to, because a lot of times that's what ends up happening, and then we end up getting angry with God about it. But it was actually something that we did, and you should have already known, because you're not paying attention to your own thoughts, your own habits, your patterns, and your cycles, because they all align, and this is how you end up where you are. Now, I'm not going to say witchcraft and sorcery, because there's a big part of that. And a lot of times when that is going on, folks don't even know what they're doing, because they don't know that they're bewitched or beguiled or wild. They don't know. And so because of that, but they had to, usually they say they have to do something, but I think a lot of that is testing, is generational stuff as well. So it can be a little bit of different things. And either way it goes, like I was saying, at the end of the day, it's just going to be what it's going to be. If there's a sorcery situation, it may take you a while to figure that out, because that does happen. But what it will do is teach you lessons on how to fight against it. Maybe your prayer life was slipping. Maybe you was disobedient. Maybe it's a test from God. Maybe he's trying to show you something, or areas in your life. It could be any of those things. Maybe it's a generational thing that just happened to land on you. So it could be different things, and it's just going to teach you and equip you of how to warfare, because you want to know how to avoid things if you can. And that's what warfare is about: praying and fasting and keeping a regimen or a ritual of things that you do to keep yourself in fellowship with God, because that's one of the greatest protections. And the main thing is staying away from sin, because that's usually what they're looking for, to see if there's any sin in your life. Because if there's any sin in your life, the curse has caused, just like with the plague. There was sin, they got out of alignment, they disobeyed God. And so because of that, they ended up having the plague, which killed off a lot of them if they had just been obedient. But anyway, bruised and not broken, I'm out, as you can see. And I didn't want in my video, but it's an accident. But anyway, be blessed. Be blessed, be blessed, be blessed. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope that this video was a blessing to you guys. Be blessed in Jesus' name. Amen.